My name is Isabella Burrell. I'm 31 years old, and I used to believe trust was enough to hold two people together. Not loyalty, not passion, not even love, just trust. If you have that, everything else falls into place. Or so I thought. When I first met Charles, he made the world feel wider. I was the structured one, color-coded planner, 7 a.m. Alarms coffee before conversation. He was chaos with a smile. Late nights, impulsive road trips, forgetting birthdays until the last minute, but somehow making up for it with grand gestures. He made me feel alive in ways I didn't know I'd been asleep. The first few months felt like living inside a movie. He'd show up at my office with takeout just because you looked tired on the phone, or drag me out to see a midnight screening of some old film I'd never heard of. He'd hold my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, always confident, always charming. We balanced each other, or at least I thought we did. I handled the practical things, bills, schedules, grocery lists. He brought the spark, the laughter, the spontaneity. Together we made sense. But it's funny how balance doesn't disappear overnight. It just tilts, one small degree at a time. It started with the phone. At first he'd leave it on the counter, face-up notifications lighting the screen. Then suddenly, it was always face down. When I asked about it once, half joking, he laughed. What, you think I'm hiding state secrets? I laughed too. Back then I still believed him easily. We'd been together almost 2 years when I first heard her name, Emma. She's just an old friend, he said offhand while scrolling through his messages. We dated in college for like a minute, but it's ancient history. I nodded, pretending not to notice how he smiled every time that name popped up afterward. The first time I met her accidentally was at a small art gallery opening. She was stunning, confident, with that effortless charm that made people orbit around her. She greeted me, politely called me Charles's better half, and winked. I smiled back, but something inside me went cold. That night I asked him, why didn't you tell me she'd be there? He shrugged. Didn't think it mattered. You're not jealous, are you? He said it like it was a joke, like jealousy was beneath me. I told him no, of course not. But when he kissed my forehead and changed the subject, I realized I wasn't sure if that was true. Over the next few months, Emma's name became part of our conversations more often, too often. Emma sent me this playlist. You'd like it. Emma's going to that festival next weekend. Small world, right? Emma said something funny about couples fighting over dumb things. Every mention came with a small test in his tone, like he was daring me to react. When I finally did one evening over takeout on the couch, it all unraveled. Do you still talk to her? I asked carefully. He didn't look up from his phone. Wow, straight to the interrogation, huh? I just asked a question. Yeah, and I just answered. Yes, I text her. She's a friend. Are we really doing this? His sigh was long and deliberate, like he was exhausted by my existence. Isabella, you can't expect me to cut off every woman I've ever known. You're not that insecure, right? It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it, slow, patient, patronizing. Like a teacher explaining a concept to a child who keeps failing to understand. That night, he went to bed first. I stayed on the couch, staring at the flickering TV, replaying every conversation we'd had in the last month. How easily he flipped the script, how quickly I'd become the one apologizing for noticing patterns that didn't add up. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. Made coffee, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't overthink things, okay? You always do that." I smiled because it was easier than arguing, but inside, something small cracked. Weeks passed. He started working later. The texts got shorter, the weekends quieter. Whenever I'd ask if something was wrong, he'd tilt his head and say, "You've been distant lately." It was subtle the way he rewrote reality. I'd leave the room feeling guilty for problems I hadn't created. One Friday night, we were watching a movie, or pretending to, when his phone lit up again. The name flashed before the screen dimmed Emma. He saw me glance, and without hesitation, he flipped it face down. For a moment, we sat in perfect silence, only the soft sound of dialogue from the TV. Then I said quietly, "You could have just answered." He didn't even look up. "And feed your paranoia." No thanks. I wanted to defend myself, to insist that this wasn't about paranoia. It was about respect. But something about the calm cruelty in his voice made me swallow the words. Later that night, lying in bed next to him, I stared at the ceiling. The soft rhythm of his breathing should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like sleeping beside a stranger. In the darkness, my mind kept looping back to that name, Emma, the girl who used to be his, and maybe still was, in ways I didn't understand. I told myself I was overthinking again. That's what he'd want me to believe, right? But deep down, a quiet truth began to take root, one that would grow louder with time. It's not paranoia when they've given you reasons to doubt. The next few weeks blurred together, a loop of smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Charles was still the same on the surface, same crooked grin, same casual charm, but something in his tone had changed. He was warmer to everyone else, colder to me. I tried to tell myself that relationships go through quiet phases, that people get busy. But late at night, when I'd hear him typing softly on his phone, laughter muffled into the pillow, I knew the silence wasn't shared, it was one-sided. One evening, he came home late, smelling faintly of cologne and bar air. I looked up from my laptop. Long day. He dropped his keys on the counter. Just dinner with a few coworkers. Which ones, I asked. I meant it casually, or at least I tried to. He raised an eyebrow. Doesn't matter. The conversation died right there. I closed my laptop slowly, the glow of the screen fading across my hands. It wasn't what he said, it was the sharpness under it, like a warning, don't start. Later, while folding laundry, I noticed a faint lipstick stain on his collar. It wasn't mine. Pale coral, too bright. My heart stopped. The next morning, I left early for work and told myself not to make it a story. Maybe it brushed off from someone's drink. Maybe it was nothing. But maybe doesn't comfort you when your gut already knows. That night, he came up behind me while I was cooking and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You've been quiet lately," he murmured. "Just tired." "Of me," he teased. I turned around. "Would you tell me if there was something I should know?" He blinked just once, then smiled amused. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind I don't want to ask." He let out a low laugh and stepped back. "God, Isabella, you've got to stop reading into everything. Emma and I are friends. That's all. You're acting crazy." That word crazy landed like a slap. I wanted to argue to point out that friends don't text past midnight or send playlists titled Songs That Remind Me of You. But I didn't have proof. Just instincts. And Charles had a talent for turning instincts into insecurities. He kissed my forehead, said, "You worry too much," and went to shower. I stood by the stove watching the sauce bubble over. After that, I stopped asking questions, at least out loud. Inside, I cataloged every small inconsistency, the way he turned off his read receipts, the sudden weekends with friends that never included me, the half-truths disguised as jokes. The more I noticed, the more careful he became. He'd bring home flowers for no reason, make breakfast on random Tuesdays, touch my hand just long enough to disarm me. That's how manipulation works, not through shouting, but through charm. Then came the birthday dinner. Just a small thing, he said, buttoning his shirt. A few people from work, maybe some old friends. Where? That new bar. By the river. "You know the one with the rooftop lights?" He didn't meet my eyes as he said it. When he finished getting ready, he looked like someone out of a magazine. Clean-lined silver watch, hair brushed back. Too polished for a few friends. "You look nice," I said quietly. He smirked. "Jealous?" I smiled faintly. "No. Just wondering if it's a special occasion." He grabbed his keys, kissed my cheek, and said, "It's just dinner. Don't wait up." I watched him leave, the sound of the door clicking shut, echoing through the apartment. The hours dragged. I cleaned the kitchen, watched half a movie, scrolled aimlessly through social media until my thumb went numb. Midnight. No text. 1:00 a.m. Still nothing. At 2:00, I finally caved and opened our location-sharing app, the one he'd asked me to install for safety. It showed unavailable. He'd turned it off. That was when the quiet inside me changed. It wasn't worry anymore. It was clarity. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Don't wait up," crashing at Mark's. I stared at the message for a long time. Mark had moved to another city last month. Charles had helped him pack. Something inside me, soft and hopeful, finally broke. The next morning, he walked in wearing sunglasses and a casual grin, holding coffee like it was a peace offering. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Morning," I replied, voice flat. He placed the cup in front of me. "Got your favorite. Caramel latte, extra shot." I didn't touch it. "Did you have fun last night?" He blinked. "Yeah. Why?" "Because Mark called this morning. Said he misses you. I told him he should have gone to dinner with you." For half a second, his expression froze. Then came the laugh, light, incredulous, practiced. "Oh my God, Isabella, you're unbelievable. I'm just asking why you lied." I didn't lie. He snapped, the charm gone. "I said I was going out. You're the one who assumed it was a group thing. I don't have to report every detail of my night like I'm checking in with HR. Charles." "No, seriously," he interrupted, voice rising. You're being paranoid. You think I'm cheating just because I had dinner with someone I used to date? Grow up. And there it was. The word again, paranoid, like a stamp on my forehead. I looked at him, really looked, and saw it clearly for the first time, the mockery in his tone, the disbelief that I could ever be the one to walk away. He thought I'd stay because I always did. But something inside me shifted. My voice came out calm, almost detached. No, I said. You don't owe me anything anymore. His smile faltered. What are you talking about? I'm talking about being done. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he laughed, sharp mocking. You're ending things over dinner. Maybe, but I'd rather be alone than disrespected. I picked up my jacket and my keys. He stood frozen as I opened the door. Isabella, don't walk out. We're just talking. I turned once my hand still on the doorknob. No, Charles. You're talking. I'm finally listening. And I left. The night air hit me like a slap and a relief at once. I didn't cry. Not that night. Instead, I walked until my legs ached, until the noise in my chest went quiet. For the first time in months, no one was telling me I was crazy. I didn't go far that night, just to Lynn's apartment across town. She's my oldest friend, the kind of person who doesn't ask questions until you're ready to answer them. When she opened the door and saw my face, she just stepped aside. I dropped my bag, sat on her couch, and finally exhaled. The air came out shaky, uneven, like I'd been holding my breath for months. Do you want to talk about it? She asked softly. Not yet, I said. I just need to not explain myself for a while. She nodded and handed me a blanket. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of rain on her balcony, a sound that felt more like comfort than anything Charles had said in weeks. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls, then texts. Where are you? We need to talk. You're being dramatic, Isabella. Come home. Then another colder one. If you think I did something wrong, that's on you. You've always had trust issues. There it was again, my issue, the thing he'd built his power around. I didn't reply. By the time I drove back to our apartment the next day, I already knew what I needed to do. I parked outside, took a deep breath, and went upstairs. The key turned easily in the lock, the last time it ever would. Inside, everything was too neat. His jacket on the chair, his shoes by the door, the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the air. It should have hurt more than it did, but instead I just felt done. I gathered his things, closed toiletries, the books he never finished, and placed them carefully in a box by the door. I left the note short. Take care of yourself. Then I called the locksmith. When I turned the key in the new lock that evening, the sound was clean. Final. The first night after I changed the locks was the quietest I'd had in months. No buzzing phone, no anxious glances at the clock, no half-hearted apologies or long circular arguments. Just silence. It didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like oxygen. For the next few days, I kept my phone on silent. The texts kept coming anyway. You're overreacting. You can't just ghost me like this. You're proving my point. You're impossible to talk to. There was never an apology, only control disguised as confusion. By day 3, the tone shifted. I miss you. Can we talk? Please, I can't sleep. I just want to explain. I stared at the messages, then turned my phone face down on the table. It wasn't about punishing him. I just didn't want to be pulled back into that noise. The truth was simple. I didn't need another explanation that blamed me for everything. On day 4, he showed up at my work. I saw him through the glass doors. Messy hair, dark circles under his eyes, holding his phone like it might save him. When he spotted me at the reception desk, he smiled faintly and gestured toward the exit. I hesitated, then stepped outside. The late afternoon light cut across the parking lot, soft but cold. Can we talk? He asked immediately. There's nothing to talk about. He frowned. You're not even going to hear me out. I already did, Charles, if I said quietly. You made it clear I was paranoid, controlling, insecure, all because I asked for honesty. His face hardened. You're twisting everything. You're acting like I cheated. I don't care what you call it, I replied. Disrespect is enough. He crossed his arms defensive. You're being dramatic. Then stop performing, I said, and turned to walk back inside. He called after me, my name sharp and desperate, but I didn't turn around. That was the first moment he realized I wasn't bluffing. After that, the messages slowed but didn't stop. Every few hours, a new number, a new attempt. You think ignoring me makes you better? You're cold, Isabella. Heartless. I hope you're happy with yourself. I read each one once, then deleted it. Because here's the truth. No one tells you when someone spends years making you question reality. Silence becomes the loudest freedom there is. One evening, Lynn came over with takeout. You look different, she said, handing me a cup of tea. Different how? Lighter. I smiled faintly. I think I'm just done being afraid of being called crazy. We ate on the couch, half laughing, half exhausted. She told me about work drama and her new cat, and I realized how long it had been since a conversation didn't feel like walking on glass. When she left, I stood by the window looking out at the streetlights flickering below. Somewhere out there, Charles was probably still trying to make sense of what happened, still convinced he was the one wronged. But I didn't need him to understand. For the first time, I didn't want anything from him. Not closure, not validation, nothing. That was the point. Because love without respect isn't love at all. It's captivity disguised as commitment. And I'd finally found the key. The texts eventually stopped. Not all at once, they faded slowly like echoes from a room you'd already left. The last one came on a Sunday morning. You can't just erase people, Isabella. I stared at it for a while before turning off my phone. I wasn't erasing him. I was just finally refusing to let him rewrite me. For the first time in years, my days had rhythm. Not chaos disguised as passion, real rhythm. I'd wake up to sunlight instead of the sound of his alarms. Brew coffee for one. Sit on the balcony legs tucked under me and listen to the city hum below. At work, my coworkers said I seemed calmer, lighter. They didn't know why, and I didn't explain. The truth felt too private, too sacred. Sometimes at night, though, I'd catch myself reaching for the phone. Old reflexes die hard. I'd open our old text thread, scroll through the endless loops of arguments that started with concern and ended with blame. Every "you're overreacting" read like a bruise I'd stopped noticing. That was the thing about gaslighting. It's not a storm. It's erosion. One drop at a time until you're hollowed out. Now I was learning how to fill back up. 2 weeks after I left, I ran into Leah, one of Charles's closest friends, the one who used to defend him no matter what. She found me at a coffee shop, smiling tightly. "Hey, Isabella," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I heard about everything. Everything I asked." She sighed dramatically. "He's a mess. He hasn't been sleeping. You really just cut him off." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Yes." She looked at me like I'd confessed to a crime. "Don't you think that's harsh?" "Silence isn't cruelty," I said softly. "It's clarity." Leah's eyes flickered with something discomfort, maybe realization, before she said, "He misses you." "I'm sure he misses having someone to blame," I replied. "That's not the same thing." She didn't have an answer for that. A few days later, I saw him again. It wasn't planned. Life just likes testing the strength of your decisions. I was leaving the office, and there he was, standing across the street, pretending to scroll on his phone. When he spotted me, he started walking over. "Isabella," he called out. I stopped my pulse quick but steady. He looked different, unshaven, tired, carrying that same confidence like armor that was starting to crack. "You've been ignoring me." "I have," I said. He exhaled sharply like I'd proved his point. "So that's it. You just disappear." "I didn't disappear. You just stopped being worth finding." His jaw tightened. "You're cruel, you know that." I tilted my head. "No, I'm finally being kind to myself." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, a shadow of the charm he used to use to win me back. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You'll regret this," he murmured. "You think silence makes you strong, but it just means you care too much to admit it." I smiled a small, tired smile. "Maybe, but at least now the caring isn't killing me." And with that, I walked past him. I didn't look back this time. That night when I got home, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Not checking makeup, not adjusting hair, just looking. I saw a woman who'd spent years being told she was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. And for the first time, I didn't want to be less. I wanted to be enough for myself. I lit a candle on the windowsill, made a small dinner, and ate in silence. The quiet that used to haunt me now felt like company. I realized something then. I'd spent so long fighting to be heard in a relationship where silence was treated as punishment. But now silence was healing. It wasn't cold, it wasn't lonely, it was peace in its purest form. The next day, Leah texted again. "He's finally stopped asking about you. Guess you got what you wanted." I typed a reply and deleted it 3 times before finally sending the truth. "No, Leah, I got what I needed." Weeks passed. I didn't see him. Didn't hear his name. Didn't feel that familiar ache when his birthday reminder popped up on my phone. I deleted it without hesitation. It was strange the world didn't end when I let go of someone I thought I couldn't live without. It just became quieter, lighter, more real. And for the first time, I started to believe that maybe silence isn't what you give someone when you're angry. It's what you give yourself when you've had enough noise. By the end of the month, I'd settled into a version of life that felt almost foreign in its simplicity. Wake up, brew coffee, feed the stray cat that visited my window, go to work, come home, sleep soundly. There was no drama, no guessing games, no nights spent pacing the hallway waiting for the sound of a key turning in the door. Peace, I learned, doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like exhaling after holding your breath for years. One morning, while scrolling through messages at work, I saw a name I hadn't thought about in weeks, Charles's friend Thomas. He'd always been polite to me, the quiet one in their group who saw more than he said. His text was short. Just so you know, he's not doing great. Don't respond. Just thought you'd want to know before you hear it from others. I didn't reply. But curiosity, that old instinct, stirred for a second. Not longing, just that human impulse to look at what you've walked away from. Later that week, I overheard two coworkers talking near the coffee machine. Apparently, Charles's ex, Emma, had posted something online about him. Something bitter, accusing him of playing the same old game. I didn't check the post. I didn't need to. The story was predictable, the same pattern, different name. He'd chased the chaos he once accused me of lacking. And the chaos finally caught him. That night, Lynn and I had dinner together at a small restaurant by the river, the same river where Charles once said he'd take me to see the fireworks, a plan that never happened. As we sat watching the water reflect the city lights, she asked quietly, "Do you ever miss him?" I took a slow sip of my wine before answering. "I miss the person I thought he was." Lynn nodded. "That's fair." There was no bitterness in my voice anymore, just clarity. That's how I knew I'd really moved on. A week later, I was walking home when I saw him. Across the street. Same tousled hair, but thinner now. Same jacket, but worn. He was talking to someone, maybe on the phone, maybe to himself, but the expression on his face was one I'd never seen before. Not confidence, not arrogance, just loss. He didn't notice me. I could have crossed the street. I didn't. For a moment, I simply watched, and then I walked away. There was no satisfaction, no ache, no racing heartbeat, just peace. The kind that doesn't need closure because it already is closure. A few days later, Charles's mother called. I hadn't expected that. She'd always liked me, maybe more than she'd admit. "Isabella," she said softly, "I just wanted to tell you. I'm sorry for everything that happened." I hesitated. "You don't need to apologize." "I know," she said, "but I saw what it did to you. I saw how small he made you feel. You didn't deserve that." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I'd spent so long being the villain in Charles's retelling of our story that hearing someone acknowledge the truth felt foreign. "Thank you," I whispered finally. After the call, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I smiled, realizing something I didn't need to hate him to be free of him. I just needed to stop carrying the weight of who he pretended to be. That night, I lit a candle on the balcony, not for him, but for me. For the woman who kept trying to fix something that was never broken, just built wrong. As the flame flickered, I thought about how often we mistake chaos for passion, manipulation, for depth, attention, for love. And I realized something so simple it almost hurt. Sometimes peace feels strange, only because you've lived too long without it. I didn't need Charles to learn that lesson. I just needed to lose him. It had been almost 6 months, long enough for the seasons to change, long enough for people to stop asking about him, and long enough for me to finally stop replaying the arguments in my head. I'd gotten used to the quiet now, the steady kind, not the kind that waits for a door to slam or a phone to buzz. I went to the gym after work, picked up sketching again, met new people who didn't know me as half of a couple that fell apart. Peace had a pattern now. Routine. Stillness. And then, like all unfinished chapters, he found his way back. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was waiting for a client at a small coffee shop near the office when I heard someone say my name. "Isabella." The voice was hesitant, unfamiliar in tone, but painfully familiar in memory. I turned. Charles stood by the counter, holding a paper cup, eyes wide like he'd seen a ghost. For a moment, the world went quiet, not in a cinematic way, just in that stunned, awkward silence of two people who used to know everything about each other and now didn't know where to put their hands. "Hey," I said finally. He smiled faintly. "Wow, you look different. Good different. Thanks." He shifted on his feet, searching for small talk. "How have you been?" "Better," I said honestly. He nodded, eyes dropping to the floor. "Yeah, I can tell." There was a pause. Then he said softly, "I've been meaning to reach out, just to talk. Clear the air, maybe." I glanced at my watch. "There's nothing to clear." He hesitated. "I didn't cheat, Isabella." I exhaled slowly. "You keep saying that like it's the only line that matters." He blinked, caught off guard. "Then what do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "That's the point." For a second, he looked genuinely lost, like someone who'd practiced 1,000 versions of this moment, but never prepared for indifference. He sat down anyway, uninvited but desperate to fill the space. "I messed up," he said quietly. I know I did, but I never wanted to hurt you. I believe that I said. You didn't want to hurt me. You just didn't care enough not to. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. No, Charles Buffer said, voice calm. It's just true. He leaned forward, eyes softening in that old familiar way. You can't just stop loving someone, Isabella. I smiled faintly. That's the thing, love isn't what stopped. Respect did. He froze as if the words landed heavier than he expected, maybe because it was the first time I'd said them without shaking. The barista called out an order, the sound breaking the tension. I stood up, gathering my things. He looked up at me, panic flickering in his eyes. So that's it. I nodded. It's been it for a while. You just didn't notice. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. You really moved on. Yeah, I said. You taught me how to. For the first time since I'd met him, he didn't have a comeback. Just silence. I walked toward the door, the air outside warm and bright. The sunlight hit my face, and I realized I wasn't walking away from him anymore. I was just walking forward. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done since before him. I don't hate him. I don't miss him. I don't wish things were different. I just wish I'd stopped trying to be enough for someone who never knew how to stay. 6 months ago, I thought losing him would break me. Now I knew it had rebuilt me instead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't moving on quickly. It's moving on quietly so completely that when they finally look back, they can't recognize the person who walked away. I looked out my window at the city lights flickering in the distance and smiled, not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped playing the game. And in that stillness, I finally understood what real peace sounds like. It doesn't shout, it doesn't prove, it just whispers, you're free now.